power didn't disappear, it vanished. This is controlled isolation. Silence means control. It's a network. They saw it coming. They moved early. Money moved first. No dependency. They stayed stable. Perfect coordination. They anticipate. The system cracked. They were ready. Nothing collapsed. Power evolved. They didn't escape, they moved ahead. The most powerful men on Earth are not moving closer to the world. They are moving away from it. Far from cities, cameras, and public attention, a different pattern is emerging. Power is no longer seeking applause. It is seeking distance. And that distance begins here, beyond the edge of ordinary life. This is not leisure in the way the world imagines it. This is controlled isolation. Every entry point is guarded, every route monitored, every movement planned. Nothing here feels casual. Nothing here feels temporary. It feels like retreat designed by men who expect turbulence ahead. From a distance, it looks like peace, but peace is not what built places like this. These islands are not hideaways for dreamers. They are command centers for men who learn that visibility can become a weakness. Silence is easier to own when you own the horizon. Isolation does not mean disconnection. In fact, it often means the opposite. The farther these men move, the more tightly they control their private world. Signals still move, decisions still travel, only now they travel through walls the outside world cannot see. Then the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. It is not one man, it is not one island. It is a quiet migration of influence itself. Across oceans, a new geography of power is taking shape. Men do not build this kind of solitude without reason. They build it when trust becomes expensive. They build it when the world becomes too crowded with risk. In these places, uncertainty is managed by narrowing access. Arrival here is different from arrival anywhere else. There are no crowds, no cameras, no ceremony, only controlled movement. The message is clear from the first second. This world is not meant to be witnessed. It is meant to remain protected from witness itself. The public still imagines power as something loud, but true power often changes shape before the world notices. It becomes quieter, more selective. Darkness is useful here. What looks empty from a distance may already be active. The island is not asleep, it is alert. Routine survives even in isolation. Morning still arrives, the body still moves. But here, daily life is stripped of interruption. From above, the isolation looks almost pure. But this world is linked by hidden roots. It means mobility without exposure. The island is not an escape. It is a way of watching the world from a safer distance. From here, chaos becomes data. Noise becomes pattern. These islands are designed not just for beauty, but for endurance. Storage, power, water, mobility, everything is layered against interruption. This is architecture built by men who study fragility, and who never intend to be caught unprepared by it. Even arrival on shore carries a ritual. Behind lies the visible life they mastered. Ahead lies the hidden life they now prefer. Security here begins where most people stop looking. Above ground, below water, across the sky, the island becomes a living perimeter. Some rooms are built to impress, others are built to decide. This is where the second type begins. No microphones, no observers, only leverage and trust. A hidden base is often more useful than a visible empire. It allows departure without announcement and return without explanation. There is a psychological shift that happens here. Distance changes not only what a man sees, but how he feels seen. The world becomes smaller. Then the scale expands. What looked like one retreat begins to resemble a network, coordinated outposts of influence. Each one distant, each one protected. The islands are not merely destinations, they are nodes in a private map of power. True isolation requires self-sufficiency, health, supply, energy. That is how retreat becomes resilience, the one luxury the powerful never stop buying. Nature helps these places disappear. The jungle conceals, the sea isolates. The environment itself becomes part of the defense. Even luxury changes in solitude. It becomes less performative and more precise. Excess here serves function as much as pleasure. To own an island is to own access, to shape arrival and predict movement. The powerful understand the value of a shield others cannot cross. These places are designed not for perfect weather, but for imperfect futures. Not for comfort alone, but for continuity. By now, the illusion is gone. This is luxury fused with contingency, a durable machine underneath. Disruption is real. The island is not alone. It belongs to a larger constellation of retreat. Separate properties, shared logic, synchronized protection. Power rarely means withdrawal. It means repositioning, a change of exposure, not a surrender of influence. Power becomes harder to measure. There is something seductive about total separation, no crowds, no demands, to become unreachable while remaining in control. Perhaps that is why these places feel cinematic, to study crisis without standing inside it, to convert experience into caution, and caution into survival. Wealth can buy comfort, but power demands vigilance. The stronger the perimeter, the more it reveals the level of fear beneath it. It is informed. At some point, power begins to look inward. It asks less about conquest and more about preservation. That shift changes everything. So the first truth is clear. These islands are instruments of distance, control, and continuity. Beneath solitude lies strategy. Are engineered environments built with one purpose in mind, to create a world where control is absolute. Every inch of land is studied, shaped, and fortified. Every approach is monitored long before arrival. Every layer of access is restricted by intention, not by accident. This is not retreat. This is controlled territory built by men who no longer trust open systems. And the deeper you go, the more calculated it becomes. Beneath the beauty of the island, there is infrastructure most people will never imagine. Entire systems built to operate without dependence on the outside world. Energy flows independently. Communications move through private encrypted channels. Data is collected, filtered, and interpreted in silence. This is where isolation becomes intelligence, because distance does not weaken awareness, it sharpens it. One island is never just one structure. It is a layered system of separation within separation. Each layer reduces access. Each layer filters trust. Each layer protects something more valuable than the last. Because the men who live here understand a simple truth. The closer you get to the center, the fewer people should be allowed to follow. Then the realization expands beyond a single location. These islands are not isolated from each other. They are part of something larger, a distributed network of power, a system where influence never disappears, it simply relocates beyond visibility. Mobility is the second pillar of this architecture. These islands are designed not only to protect, but to evacuate, to relocate, to adapt. At any moment, departure can happen within minutes. No delays, no exposure, just precision movement, executed without announcement. Wealth is not left behind when power retreats. It moves with it. Data, assets, leverage, everything essential is transferred into environments like this. Because the true value is not what is seen, but what is secured. And in places like these, security is engineered to outlast disruption itself. Every system here is built for pressure, not just social pressure, but environmental, economic, global pressure. Storms are not interruptions. They are tests of structure, of preparation, of foresight. And these places are designed to pass those tests again and again. Access is everything here. Not money, not status, only access. Who enters, who moves, who stays. Every decision is filtered through systems that do not rely on emotion. Trust is no longer assumed. It is verified, measured, and constantly reevaluated. Even vulnerability is accounted for. Health, emergency, contingency. Everything that could interrupt continuity is neutralized before it becomes a threat. And then comes the moment where everything connects. This is no longer individual behavior, this is coordinated strategy. A silent alignment among those who see what others do not. They are not waiting for change, they are preparing for it together, without ever appearing connected. The deeper layers of these islands were never meant to be seen. What exists above ground is only a fraction of the design. Beneath the surface lies the real structure of control. This is where contingency plans are stored, and where the true depth of preparation begins to reveal itself. From here, the world looks different. Not chaotic, but predictable. Because when you observe from distance, you begin to see patterns others miss. And those patterns become the foundation of power. The island is not a place to escape reality. It is a place to understand it before it unfolds. Everything here is built against pressure. Not just the pressure of nature, but the pressure of uncertainty itself. Because the future rarely arrives gently. It arrives in waves, unexpected, relentless, and often destructive. And the men who choose these islands are preparing to withstand it. Movement within the island is never random. Every route is planned, every transition controlled. Even inside isolation, there are layers of separation. Because trust, even here, is never absolute. And the closer you move toward the core, the more restricted everything becomes. In the modern world, information is power, and power cannot exist without protection. That is why data is brought here, secured, isolated, controlled. Because whoever controls information controls outcomes, and outcomes are what these men have always shaped. Isolation creates a different kind of awareness. There are no distractions here, no noise to dilute focus, only space, only distance, only clarity. And in that clarity, decisions become sharper, faster, and far more deliberate. Preparedness is not optional here. It is the foundation of everything. Food, water, energy, every necessity is secured in advance. Because dependency is weakness, and weakness is something these environments are designed to eliminate completely. Then comes the moment where stillness turns into motion. Signals begin to align, movements begin to synchronize. This is no longer passive observation. This is active positioning, because when multiple powerful entities move at once, it is never coincidence. It is coordination. Darkness does not reduce awareness here, it sharpens it. Every shadow is monitored, every movement detected, every signal interpreted. Because in isolation, threats do not disappear. They become harder to see, and therefore more important to detect early. Power changes a man, but isolation transforms him completely. Out here, there is no audience, no expectation, no performance. Only thought, only strategy, only perspective, and perspective is where true decisions are made. Conversations here are different. They are quieter, shorter, more decisive, because every person in the room understands the stakes. There is no need for persuasion, only alignment. And alignment is what moves power forward without resistance. At any moment, departure remains an option, because stability is never guaranteed, and those who understand instability never rely on a single location. Mobility remains the final layer of control, the ability to move without delay, without exposure. Silence becomes addictive in places like this because silence removes interference, it removes pressure, it removes distraction. And when all of that disappears, only clarity remains. And clarity is the most dangerous advantage of all. Everything here is measured: time, access, movement. Nothing is left unmonitored because control is not a single action. It is a continuous system. And systems like this do not exist by accident. They are built, refined, and constantly improved. Now the full picture begins to emerge. This is not isolation in the traditional sense. It is a distributed system of control, hidden across distance. Each island, a node. Each movement, a signal. Each decision, part of something larger, and the world has barely begun to notice. What once appeared as scattered retreats now reveals itself as a structured network. Not isolated, but interconnected. Not random, but deliberately positioned. Each island supports the others. Each movement is part of a larger system. Power is distributed, hidden across distance, and nearly impossible to disrupt. Coordination is what transforms isolation into strength. Each island alone is powerful, but together, they form something far more resilient. A system that can adapt, shift, and respond in real time. No single failure can collapse it. No single disruption can stop it. It was never designed to depend on one place alone. Even in darkness, the system remains active. Signals continue to move. Connections remain intact because this network does not sleep. It does not pause. It does not rely on daylight or visibility. It operates continuously, quietly, beyond the awareness of the outside world. At this level, power becomes something internal. It is no longer about dominance in public space. It is about control over environment, over timing, over exposure. The man standing here is no longer competing for attention. He has already moved beyond it, and once that shift happens, returning to the old world becomes optional. The deeper the protection, the more valuable the contents. Assets are relocated, secured, and shielded from volatility. Because in uncertain time, what you protect matters more than what you display. And protection is the foundation of lasting power. The true test of any system is pressure, and pressure does not arrive politely. It arrives suddenly, violently, and without warning. But systems like this are built for exactly that, not to avoid disruption, but to endure it, without collapse. Then comes the moment where everything accelerates. Movement becomes synchronized, decisions become immediate, where execution becomes precise. This is not reaction, this is readiness, a system designed to move as one, even when spread across distance. And that is where its true strength lies. Silence often precedes the most important decisions, because noise distracts, but silence clarifies. And here, clarity is everything. Every move is calculated, every outcome anticipated, because mistakes at this level are not easily forgiven by reality. From a distance, it all looks peaceful. Quiet islands, calm waters, still horizons. But beneath that calm exists one of the most controlled environments ever created. A world where nothing is accidental, and nothing is left unplanned. So the second truth becomes undeniable. This is not escape, it is evolution. Power has not disappeared. It has relocated, adapted, and expanded into forms the world is only beginning to understand. And what comes next will reveal why this shift was never optional. By now, the pattern is clear, but patterns alone do not explain intention, because powerful men do not move without purpose. And they do not disappear without reason. Something deeper is driving this shift, something beyond comfort, beyond luxury. Beyond isolation itself, the islands were never the destination. They were preparation. Preparation for something the rest of the world has not yet fully understood. Inside these rooms, the future is not guessed. It is modeled, simulated, stress-tested. Economic systems, supply chains, Ling Yu, environmental shifts, everything is studied long before it becomes visible to the public. Because information at this level is not about news. Ling Yu, it is about prediction. And prediction is what separates reaction from control. Ling Yu, the realization begins quietly, not as a single event, but as a convergence of signals. Ling Yu, disruptions that seem unrelated, but align in ways that cannot be ignored. And when those signals connect, those who are watching closely do not wait for confirmation. They act. Ling Yu. Preparation begins before the world even realizes it needs to prepare. Movements accelerate, protocols activate, systems shift into higher readiness. Ling Yu, because delay is the one risk these men refuse to take, and hesitation is something they eliminated long ago. Ling Yu. Everything here has a second version and a third, and sometimes even a fourth. Redundancy is not excess, it is survival. Ling Yu. Because the question is no longer if disruption will happen, but when and when it does. Only those who prepared early will remain unaffected. Ling Yu. This is no longer about a single region. The network spans continents, oceans, jurisdictions, a distributed system of retreat and control. Ling Yu. Each location capable of operating alone, yet stronger together. This is not coincidence. This is architecture built for a global scenario. Ling Yu. Money moves differently before change arrives. Quietly, quickly, and without attention. Assets shift into positions of safety. Liquidity is repositioned. Ling Yu. Exposure is reduced because those who understand the system never remain fully inside it when risk increases. Ling Yu. Self-sufficiency becomes the ultimate advantage. Food, water, energy, controlled within the same environment. No reliance on unstable systems. Ling Yu. No dependence on external supply chains, because when the outside world slows, these places continue without interruption. Ling Yu. Security adapts as risk evolves. It becomes more precise, more anticipatory, more aggressive in detection, because threats do not announce themselves. Ling Yu. They emerge quietly, often too late to respond, unless you are already watching for them. Ling Yu. Then everything accelerates. Signals increase, movement intensifies. Ling Yu. Decisions compress into seconds. This is not preparation anymore. This is execution. Ling Yu. The moment where theory becomes action. And once that moment begins, it does not slow down. Ling Yu. The deeper levels were never meant for comfort. They were built for survival, for scenarios that most people refuse to imagine. Ling Yu. Reinforced against impact, sealed against exposure, isolated from everything above, because when the surface becomes unstable, only what lies beneath remains protected. Ling Yu. The signals are no longer subtle, they are accelerating. Patterns that once appeared distant are now converging. Economic shifts, environmental instability, Ling Yu, systemic pressure building simultaneously. And for those who have been watching, this is not unexpected. It is confirmation. Once confirmation arrives, movement becomes immediate. Ling Yu. There is no hesitation, no debate, only execution, because time is the only resource that cannot be controlled once lost. And those who move first control what comes next. Ling Yu. Preparation reveals its true value only under pressure. Every stored resource, every backup system, every calculated reserve begins to matter. Survival is built long before it arrives. Ling Yu. The network is no longer quiet. It is active, coordinated, moving as one system. Because isolation was never the final goal, it was the foundation. Ling Yu. And now, that foundation is being used exactly as intended. From a global perspective, the changes are subtle at first. Small disruptions, minor delays, slight instability. Ling Yu. But when viewed together, they form a larger picture, a system under stress, a system beginning to shift, faster than it was designed to handle. Ling Yu. Money always moves before collapse becomes visible, quietly, strategically, without attention, because those who understand risk do not wait for confirmation from the public world. Ling Yu. They act on early signals, and by the time others notice, the positioning is already complete. Pressure continues to build, not in one place, but everywhere at once. Ling Yu. And when pressure becomes global, local solutions are no longer enough. That is why these islands exist, to remain stable when everything else begins to lose balance. Ling Yu. Security adapts instantly because uncertainty increases risk, and risk demands awareness. Every movement is tracked, every signal analyzed. Ling Yu. Because in moments like these, the smallest oversight can become the largest mistake. Then the tipping point begins, the moment where stability starts to break. Ling Yu, not suddenly, but rapidly enough to feel irreversible. And in that moment, only those already positioned remain in control. Control was always about preparing before reaction becomes necessary. Ling Yu, there is a calm that exists at the center of preparation, a silence that does not come from ignorance, but from certainty. The certainty that everything possible has already been accounted for. Ling Yu, and that whatever comes next will not arrive as a surprise. Even vulnerability is controlled. Health systems, response protocols, backup measures. Ling Yu, because in isolation there is no external support. Everything must exist within. Everything must function without delay. Ling Yu, the network tightens, movement increases, coordination becomes constant, because once activation begins, there is no return to stillness, only forward motion, only execution. Ling Yu. At the center of it all, control remains intact, because chaos does not affect those who prepared for it. It only affects those who ignored it, and that difference is now becoming visible. Ling Yu. Now the hidden agenda becomes clear. This was never about escape. It was about positioning. Positioning for a world that is beginning to change faster than most can understand. Ling Yu, a world where preparation defines survival and control defines outcome. And for those already inside this system, the future has already begun. What once looked like preparation now reveals itself as execution at scale. Ling Yu. Not isolated actions, but synchronized movements across distance. A system already active, already aligned, already functioning exactly as designed. This is no longer theory. Ling Yu, this is reality unfolding, in real time. Inside these rooms, there is no panic, only precision. Operators monitoring global disruptions. Ling Yu, because everything happening now was anticipated, simulated, planned. The difference is, the rest of the world is only now beginning to feel it. Ling Yu, the system begins to strain, not in one place, but everywhere at once. Connections weaken, dependencies break, and stability starts to fracture. Ling Yu, what seemed permanent reveals its fragility. And in that moment, only those who prepared early remain unaffected. This is where perspective changes completely. Ling Yu, where chaos becomes distance and distance becomes control. The man standing here is no longer reacting to events. He is observing them from a position already secured. Ling Yu, and that is the ultimate advantage. This is what preparation looks like under stress. Not failure, not hesitation, but continuity. Systems designed to function regardless of external collapse. Ling Yu, because true power is not tested in stability, it is proven in disruption. And here, disruption changes nothing. The network holds. Every node remains functional. Every connection remains intact. So the truth is no longer hidden. This was never about isolation. It was about foresight, about positioning ahead of change, about understanding what was coming before it arrived. And now, only one question remains. What happens next? When the rest of the world finally catches up, Ling Yu, after the storm comes silence, not the kind of silence that feels empty, but the kind that carries weight. Because something has changed, not just in the world outside, but in the structure of power itself. What once depended on visibility has now evolved into something far more controlled, far more distant, and far more difficult to understand. These places were never built for moments of peace. They were built for moments of uncertainty. And now, they have proven their purpose. While systems outside struggled to adapt, these environments remained unchanged, stable, controlled, uninterrupted. The realization begins quietly. The world outside is recovering, but not in the same way it was before, because something fundamental has shifted. The balance of control, the structure of influence, the visibility of power, and those who moved early are no longer part of the same system. Control does not always look like action. Sometimes it looks like stillness, because once a system is positioned correctly, it no longer needs constant adjustment. It simply observes, waits, and moves only when necessary. What appears quiet is not inactive. It is controlled restraint, because power at this level does not rush. It does not react impulsively. It moves with precision only when movement creates advantage. The foundation remains unchanged. Every system, every layer, every contingency still in place. Because preparation is not temporary. It becomes permanent once it proves its value. And then, a deeper truth emerges. The network did not remain the same. It expanded. More locations, more connections, more layers of protection, because once a system proves effective, it grows. Control has shifted, not visibly, but structurally. The systems people rely on are no longer the same systems controlling outcomes, because control now exists behind layers, beyond reach, and beyond easy understanding. Independence is the final advantage, to exist without reliance, without dependency, without vulnerability. Because when you no longer depend on unstable systems, you are no longer affected by their failure. This is the final evolution of power, not loud, not visible, not easily understood, but precise, controlled, and prepared. And once power reaches this level, it does not return to what it once was. At the deepest level of control, everything becomes quiet, not because nothing is happening, but because everything is already in place. No urgency remains, no reaction is required, only observation. Because once preparation reaches its peak, action becomes minimal and control becomes effortless. The world begins to move again, but it does not move the same way, because something invisible has shifted beneath it. The structure remains, but the control behind it has changed, and most will never realize when that shift happened, because it happened quietly, far away, on islands they will never see. Power no longer depends on exposure. It no longer requires validation. It exists independently now, behind systems that are designed not to be seen, not to be questioned, and not to be interrupted, because the less visible power becomes, the more stable it is. Distance has become the ultimate barrier, not walls, not borders, but distance itself, because distance removes access, and without access, there is no interference, only control, uninterrupted and absolute. In the end, this life becomes something else entirely, not luxury, not escape, but separation. A separation from noise, from pressure, from unpredictability, and once that separation is achieved, there is no reason to return. Even now, there are layers still unseen, systems within systems, structures beneath structures, because what is visible is only what needs to be visible. Everything else remains hidden, by design. At this level, power becomes internal. It is no longer about influence over others, but control over environment, over exposure, over timing. The world may continue to move, but from here, it feels distant. Preparedness does not disappear after use. It remains ready, constant, because uncertainty does not end. It only changes form, and those who understand that never lower their guard. Calm returns, but it is not the same calm as before. It is controlled calm, stabilized, managed, maintained. Because once chaos has been anticipated, peace becomes engineered, not accidental. This is where the transformation completes. Not loudly, not visibly, but permanently. Power has shifted, adapted, evolved, and once it reaches this form, it does not return. Control does not need constant presence, because once systems are set, they continue, silently, independently, without attention, and that is the final evolution of power. From a distance, it all disappears again, just as it began, hidden, unnoticed, unchallenged, because the most powerful systems are the ones that are never fully seen. And for the rest of the world, nothing appears different. Life continues, systems operate, movement resumes, unaware of what has already changed beneath it. Because the greatest shifts are never announced. They happen quietly, far from attention, far from noise. And by the time they are noticed, they are already complete. So the final truth remains. Power did not disappear. It did not collapse. It did not retreat in fear. It transformed into something quieter, stronger, and far more difficult to reach. In the end, the islands were never the story. They were only the setting. The real story was the transformation of power itself, from something visible to something hidden, from something reactive to something prepared. And once that transformation is complete, it cannot be reversed. The systems remain even when the people step away, because true control does not require constant presence. It is built into the structure itself, silent, independent, enduring, and that is what makes it so difficult to challenge. At the highest level, power becomes invisible even to itself. It no longer seeks recognition. It no longer needs validation, because it has already secured what matters most: control, distance, and time. And once those are secured, everything else becomes secondary. From the outside, nothing appears extraordinary, just islands, water, silence. But beneath that silence exists one of the most controlled environments ever created, a system designed not for today, but for whatever comes next. The world moves forward, unaware of how close it came to instability, unaware of who prepared and who did not. Because the difference was never visible, it existed behind distance, behind silence, behind decisions made long before the moment arrived. In the end, power becomes something abstract, not a place, not a person, not a moment, but a position of readiness, of awareness, of control. And then it disappears again, back into silence, back into distance, back into a world that exists, but is rarely seen, because the most powerful decisions are often made where no one is watching. The lights remain, but the meaning behind them is hidden, because what matters is no longer visible. It exists beneath layers, beyond reach, beyond understanding for most. So the final message is simple. Power does not disappear. It evolves. It adapts. It moves ahead of change and positions itself beyond risk. And those who understand this never wait for the world to catch up. They move before it does. And somewhere, far beyond what can be seen, the most powerful men in the world are no longer part of the system you understand. They are operating beyond it, quietly, strategically, and permanently.